Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm finally going to film my second trimester video that I've been meaning to do for quite a few weeks now, but I don't know, I just didn't get round to it and I kept putting it off because I knew it was just going to be a bit more effort than the last one because there was a bit more to talk about during the second trimester. But nonetheless, I'm here ready to film this video. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna hope that this video isn't too long because the house behind ours is doing some garden renovations and the workmen have been using some pretty loud tools and I think they might have gone on their lunch break now. So I was hoping I can film this video during their lunch break and have it finished before they get back, because otherwise I'm just not going to be able to film for the rest of the afternoon again, so we'll see. Hopefully I get it done. Anyway, in this video I'm going to be talking about my whole experience of the second trimester. I just want to stress that this is purely just about my experience. I'm not saying anything anyone should do, I'm not giving any advice, I'm not giving any medical I don't know, information that people shouldn't access from their own medical professionals, like your midwife, your doctor, your consultant if you've got one. So yeah, this is purely just me talking about my experience. It might help some people out there, it might give some people some awareness of some things that people can go through during pregnancy whilst also being immunosuppressed and being at high risk. So if you think any of these things are relatable to you, then this could be the video for you. For the second trimester video, I'm specifically talking about weeks 12 through to 28, so that middle chunk. And my middle chunk of pregnancy is probably divided up quite nicely, like literally half of it, the first half, was very similar to the first trimester, not that great. And then the second half had significantly improved, quite literally just like out of nowhere. I just don't even remember gradually feeling better, I just remember suddenly feeling better. Anyway, let's crack on. I have been keeping notes throughout my whole pregnancy just of various symptoms I've been feeling. Whenever I noticed something new, I would note it down. Whenever I noticed something was recurring, I would write down how long it lasted. And hopefully these notes are comprehensive enough for me to actually remember everything, because I am 39 weeks pregnant now, so I'm very, very end of pregnancy. So I have already spoke about my 12-week scan in my last video during the first trimester video. So if that's something you're interested in knowing about, I will leave that first trimester video down below. And I'm going to be talking about everything after the 12-week scan in this one up until 28 weeks. So I'm going to mention again, just in case anyone is new to this specific video, I have an autoimmune condition called ulcerative colitis. That means I have to take regular immunosuppressant medication to prevent my body from flaring and kind of attacking itself. I'm currently on vedolizumab infusions every 8 weeks, and because of this my pregnancy is considered high risk because there's various risks and complications from, I guess, growing a child in an immunosuppressed body with this kind of medication. The benefits of me taking this medication outweigh the risks, so the benefits to both me and child are much higher than the risks, because if I don't take the medication, the risk of me going into a flare and getting extremely unwell is far, far greater. So it was one of those situations where you just kind of had to pick the best that you could do. I can't just not take my medication and get really sick and then potentially harm the child by being really unwell and being hospitalised or needing surgery, etc. So yes, that's the kind of decision we went down. I was referred for consultant-led care for the whole duration of my pregnancy, which I think I spoke about in the last video as well. But just in case you haven't seen that yet, I had a joint clinic where I basically saw an obstetrician alongside a gastroenterologist at the same time, where they could basically advise each other on their own specialties. Because obviously an obstetrician is a pregnancy specialist, and then a gastroenterologist is a specialist in my condition. So yeah, they kind of help make decisions together alongside me for what would be the best care plan for me during my pregnancy. Honestly, the NHS are amazing. I really, really feel lucky that I had that and I was able to get that for free on the NHS. And I really liked my obstetrician and the gastroenterologist. They were all super helpful, and I saw the same people throughout up until my third trimester when I decided to swap trusts. I'll talk about that during my third trimester video though. So I had my first in-person cons-led care appointment at the RVI at week 14, so a couple of weeks after my 12-week scan, where I basically went in and they kind of just discussed my whole care basically. They kind of just decided like a care plan from now until towards the end of pregnancy, and I would regularly get reviewed to see if anything needed to change. So for example, if any medication needed to change, if my health changed, if anything with the baby changed. Very grateful that so far, touch wood, nothing really needed to change. If anything, I've had a fairly smooth pregnancy considering all the risks and the potential issues that could have arisen. So I feel super lucky about all of that. Really quickly, so I don't forget, up until 14 weeks, I might as well mention some of the symptoms I had. I would say, like I said earlier, my second trimester is probably split right down the middle, from like the first half not being that great, the second half being significantly better. So during the first half, I basically experienced everything that I was experiencing in the first trimester. Some people say that by 12 weeks you do start to feel better. That wasn't the case for me. I was pretty much consistently still sick and struggling with nausea, struggling with smells, right up until like 18 to 20 weeks. So like pretty much right in the middle of the whole pregnancy. Now don't get me wrong, the nausea and the vomiting and all that sort of stuff, it is manageable. It's not like the worst thing in the world. Although at the time it feels like it's never gonna end. It did eventually end for me, thankfully. And I feel like, I'm not sure if it was set off by me having other illnesses at the time, which I do talk about in my first trimester video. But yeah, anyway, I had pretty much like constant nausea. I really struggled with most smells. I couldn't eat most foods. In fact, I was still losing weight at this point because I wasn't able to eat a significant amount. I was on anti-sickness tablets. I can't remember what they're called, cyclizine or something like that. Which did take the edge off. They didn't get rid of it completely, but they did definitely take the edge off. I wasn't like physically vomiting as much thanks to that medication. Some of the other symptoms I have wrote down here is that I was having to eat little and often to avoid nausea, so I couldn't have like a meal. Basically, I was just having a snack throughout the day. I started receiving I started getting around ligament pain, which is kind of like a pulling or a stretch down the sides of your stomach, kind of going into that little V area into your groin. It wasn't terrible, but it was definitely noticeable. Like, so sometimes if I bent over or was trying to reach something, I would get like a pulling or stabbing pain, and that's kind of what I felt. I also was getting like headaches, lightheadedness, and a bit of dizziness, probably because I wasn't eating enough because of the sickness and nausea, or at least that's what I feel like it would have been, because that did improve as the nausea improved. And then slowly as the weeks went on, I can see that I've like wrote now only occasional sickness, improved illness, things like that. During week 15, I started to get the increased peeing, waking up early with like a tender bladder. So I wasn't like waking up through the night to wee at this point, but I was waking up like with a really full bladder, and it felt really tender, and I felt like I really needed to wee. Like if I didn't go immediately, I would wee myself. So that was probably the start of when I began realizing I couldn't go all night without weeing. And I was also getting like quite a significant amount of nosebleeds during my second trimester. I did talk to my midwife about this, and she basically said that if I'm unable to stop it from bleeding, or if it's like a large amount and it lasts for longer than 10 minutes, then I need to go in to the hospital. But it was never like that bad. I was just having them a lot. I was always able to stop them within like a normal time frame. But yeah, they would just kind of like happen out of nowhere, and I just couldn't predict when they were going to happen. And I feel like I'm so lucky that it never happened while I was out. I have no idea why or how. I feel like they normally just happened while I was just sat around. Like, so if I was just sat on the sofa watching telly, I'd feel like my nose get wet and I'd like rub it, and then it would be blood, and then all of a sudden my nose would start pouring. Or when I was in the shower, I don't know if maybe my showers were a bit too warm at the time, considering I have like 50% more blood when you're pregnant. That sometimes I would like be washing my hair and I'd lean forward a little bit and my nose would start pouring. So yeah, that was fun. I was getting like very regular nosebleeds, like almost every single day, sometimes a couple of times a day. But yeah, that's just one of those symptoms that people don't really talk about in pregnancy. I didn't know it was a thing until I got pregnant and then I experienced it. Now, during my second trimester, I did receive a second referral, and this one wasn't related to my ulcerative colitis or my medication or anything like that. It was actually because a few years ago, I don't know if you've seen on my channel, I have made videos about them and I will link them down below, but I had something called CIN3 cells and HPV, which led to me needing to have something called LLETZ treatment on my cervix. Basically, it's pre-cancerous cells. I had the highest grade of pre-cancerous cells. Thankfully, it wasn't cancer, and the treatment did completely remove all of those cells, and I was fine after that. It was picked up during like a routine smear test, so get your smear tests. I had like a significant amount of my cervix removed, so I was like a little bit over the threshold. That meant that I had to be referred to the preterm clinic, which meant I had to have these additional scans and tests done to check the risk that I might go into preterm labour because of the effect on my cervix from having LLETZ treatment. So I went to the preterm clinic. They gave me something called a QUIPP. If I can find some information about it online or on the NHS or something, I will leave it linked down below. But it's essentially like a tool that they use where they take measurements of your cervix every few weeks during your second trimester. So I think I had them from weeks 16 to 22. And they took like a length measurement and they like press on your fundal, which is like the top of your uterus. They press on it to see if there's any like tunneling or not tunneling, is it funneling? It might be funneling, see if your cervix opens, and they do all that sort of thing. And like after a few weeks, they see if any of your cervixes start to shorten from the pressure of like your baby growing and that sort of thing. And they're able to use this tool, I guess, on their system that they've got, where it calculates and measures a percentage that you might go into preterm labour earlier than 37 weeks or 35 weeks. I can't quite remember, but basically I had to have all that done. It really wasn't so bad. I did have to have internal scans every single time, so it wasn't just over the belly. It was like a probe inside your vagina. So I had that done, and I mean, it was fine. I just had to go into the hospital regularly. My work were fine with it, obviously, because, well, it's like a medical need. I did have to have it done. The silver lining of it all was that we got to see the baby a bit more regularly, and yeah, that was like just a nice little addition to having to have all these extra tests done. So yeah, I had the QUIPP done, and at the end of it, they did determine that my risk of going into preterm labour was quite low. I think, what was it? It was like less than 5%, and I think if you were over 5%, that's when you would need to continue being monitored by the preterm clinic. But yeah, after having those 3 scans, I was discharged, and that was a nice relief. It meant it was like another thing that I didn't have to be worrying about. Obviously, there's always a risk no matter what. Like they would never be able to tell me that I might never have preterm labour, because you just don't know. Like a totally healthy person that presents to be completely healthy could go into preterm labour as well. So it was just something that I didn't have to think about too much. At 16 weeks, you also have, at least where I am, you get another midwife appointment. I had that appointment, and to be honest, I don't really think that much happened. They kind of just like ask you a few questions, ask how you're doing, they test your urine, they test your blood pressure, they take some blood tests and that sort of thing. I think everything was fairly normal. Let me just consult my notes. Yeah, things were pretty normal for me. I basically had like protein trace in my urine, but it was nothing to worry about because my blood pressure was normal. And I think that's at the point when I spoke about having nosebleeds, and that's when she kind of like told me what I would need to do for all of that. But yeah, weird. An exciting update on this one for week 17 is that's when I really realised I was feeling movements from the baby, which I know is early. Like a lot of people say you don't necessarily feel the baby until you're like 20 to 22 weeks. I'm pretty sure at like week 15 I was actually feeling flutters, and then at week 17 I actually was definitely feeling like actual movements. And I don't know if, I feel like when you're someone who has a chronic illness, particularly an illness that affects your abdomen, you become very aware of like all the feelings you can feel there. So I felt like I was very aware of every single movement. Also, as time progressed, I found out that my baby was particularly active in comparison to other pregnancies. So that's probably also it as well. Like she was just a naturally active, kicky, punchy baby, which is fun. To be fair, I quite like it because it's really reassuring to know that she's moving around and I can feel her. Also, I have an I have a posterior placenta, so my placenta's at the back, which means that there's nothing at the front blocking it, and I feel like that probably helped too. I know there's lots of people who have an anterior placenta where the placenta is basically like a cushion at the front of your belly between the baby and you, so it can be a little bit difficult to feel those movements. So that probably helped as well. Week 17, I've wrote, able to eat properly now, just not huge meals. Back to eating usual meals. So although I couldn't eat a large amount because it would give me heartburn, I was able to eat like breakfast, dinner, tea, like a normal person. For week 19, this is where I've wrote, best week so far, I feel fairly normal. So yeah, like right in the middle, like week 19 to 20 was when I started to feel like a normal person again. And then obviously everything after that changes, because then your belly gets bigger, your baby gets heavier, and you start having like different symptoms for different reasons, because it's more about like the weight and the size of the baby and what's happening like with how big the baby is inside your body. But yeah, anyway, week 19, best week so far. It probably was like the best week in the whole pregnancy. I was eating normal. It says here I only vomited once in the morning when I had to get up very early, and I had a little bit of round ligament pain, but not much. Week 20 is like a milestone week. When you're pregnant, it's when you have your 20-week anomaly scan or anatomy scan. I think they call it different things at different trusts, but it's basically that big scan. It takes about an hour where they literally check as much as they physically can. So they're checking for all sorts. Just an airplane going over, I don't know if you can hear that. So yeah, during the anatomy scan, they are checking for all sorts of various health conditions. It's not like a diagnostic tool, they're just checking for possibilities that could mean that there is something. I think there's like literally loads of things that they can pick up on. I will leave a link down below to the NHS information on what the anatomy scan is, but yeah, it's also, they don't really fully know what your baby will be like until they're born, and also various issues can crop up after that as well. So you don't want to take it as like a be all and end all kind of scan, but it is very reassuring to have, and it's really nice because quite often, unless you've had an early scan to predict gender, this is normally when you would find out the gender of your baby, and it is when we found out the gender of ours. That's when we found out we were having a little girl, and it was really exciting. They did try and check earlier for us because we just happened to have earlier scans because of the preterm clinic. But they never wanted to say 100% just in case they got it wrong, because it's more accurate from 20 weeks. They can check from 16 weeks, but yeah, it's more accurate from 20 weeks. And that's when they were kind of like, nope, definitely a girl. There's definitely no penis there. That's when we found out she was going to be little baby Lydia. I've wrote down a few cravings I had at the time. I haven't had many cravings, I don't think. Not the way that other people describe it, where like it's life or death if you don't eat this thing. Nothing that bad. I just would sometimes like really fancy something, and if I didn't get it, it was fine. And it also was never anything that super interesting. Like I was kind of looking forward to finding out if I have any weird quirky cravings, but no, I was really boring, and I was craving vegetables and roast dinners. I very specifically remember wanting to have cauliflower cheese a lot. No idea why. I've actually never really liked cauliflower cheese until the last year. From week 21, this was another symptom I didn't realise happened like quite early, like this early in pregnancy, like at week 21. Like I thought it was something that happened like at the end or after giving birth, but I started getting leaking. When I say leaking, I mean like literal like breast milk. Well, I think it's more like colostrum or some kind of fluid. But yeah, I started getting that, and it was happening more so like at night if I was laid a certain way and I was like crushing one of my boobs. Or like during the day if I was like sat a certain way and I was like leaning forward and like again crushing one of them. That's more so when it happened. It wasn't to the point where I had like really bad wet patches and I needed to wear like pads or anything. I never ever got that bad, and I actually still haven't so far in pregnancy. It was just a bit more of like a minor convenience. I would just like randomly feel it and I'd be like, ew, that's kind of gross. But it's weird how quick you get used to it. It just became a part of my daily routine. I would be like, it's happened again. Put a towel down on the bed when I go to sleep so it doesn't affect my mattress, kind of thing. Yeah, didn't know that happened from as early as 21 weeks pregnant, but you live and learn. From week 22 was like another milestone event for me and Eric, I guess, and it was the first time that we actually physically saw the baby move in my stomach, like actually saw like a little foot or hand or whatever it was something. Basically every night Eric would like oil my belly. It's a really nice way for dads or partners to bond with the baby, because they can kind of try and feel the movements, they can talk to the baby, they can read to them, sing to them or whatever. So we kind of made that part of our evening routine, where Eric would like help with applying a bit of stretch mark oil, and he would rub the baby and feel the baby and whatnot. And yeah, it was the first time ever during week 22 when we physically saw my belly move. Kind of creepy. Eric did get really weirded out for like the longest time. He thought it was like the strangest thing to say. It was like an alien, which I agree, it does look really weird. He kind of got used to it after a while, of course, as my belly got bigger, because at that point, like, my belly's not like huge either, so it just looks really strange. But yeah, kind of weird. I can see here that from weeks 23, 24 and 25 is when I started to get like rib pain. So basically what happens is, to accommodate a growing belly, all of your ligaments and your muscles relax so that they can expand outwards, and your rib cage quite literally widens to make space for all of like your guts and the baby to squish up there. And I definitely noticed quite a lot of pain in the second half of the second trimester, where it felt like sore to the touch, or I couldn't bend a certain way because it felt like just tender. And I don't remember having that since either. Like I don't think I've had that at all during the third trimester. It was just during the second trimester. So I think it was just the initial like widening of the rib cage where I felt that. I was also getting a lot of hip pain at this point, again because of the muscles relaxing. Your hips are getting wider to accommodate a baby in that space. I also started getting really bad leg cramps, so if I was doing a bit more walking than usual or standing on my feet a little bit more, I would notice that during that night I would wake up with the most intense leg cramp. Like literally it would make me cry, and I couldn't move my leg, and Eric had to like massage my leg to make it go away, and then I would be able to go back to sleep. And because I looked into it and I kind of realised what made it better, it did improve after that. So basically if I ever needed to be on my feet more, I made sure I was wearing very supportive shoes, like comfortable supportive shoes. I would try to rest as often as possible. I would make sure I had a bath that evening as well, so that the muscle could relax a bit before I got into bed. And then when I did get into bed, I used a pillow to keep my feet raised, and I basically would not stretch my legs at all during the night. Because the second you like stretch your foot out during the night, like you would like stretch out your feet and your calves as you're moving around to get comfortable again, and that's what would set it off. I think that's what would set it off for me anyway. So the second I sort of felt myself like stretching, I'd be like, nope, I'm not stretching my foot. I'm going to turn over and I'm going to stay perfectly still, because I do not want to feel that horrible excruciating pain again. That's probably the most painful thing I've felt so far during this whole pregnancy. And now I've kind of learned how to manage it. Like it's rarely happened. It's only happened like a couple of times now, which I'm really grateful for. So if you're experiencing that, that's kind of like my little advice, is like have a bath, wear comfortable shoes, and try to not stretch your legs out during the night. Weeks 25 to 27, I've wrote here that I was getting quite itchy on my belly, and that's just because your skin's really starting to stretch at that point. Again, because your belly's getting much bigger, and I noticed it more so like around my belly button. I also have I'll put a picture to show you, but I have like a belly button piercing from when I was a teenager, which I decided to take out for pregnancy because I couldn't be bothered to deal with all the stretching. I thought I'd just rather let it heal up. And then I found like around that piercing it would stretch the skin, and that would get quite itchy. Thankfully I've not had any like significant issues with it or anything. I just had to make sure I was keeping it clean because obviously it is a hole in your body, and needed to heal up because I did have a piercing. So yeah, that's like a very slight specific issue that I had. And then this kind of brings me towards the end of the 28 weeks. Actually, I feel like this video has been much shorter than I expected. I'll show you my belly. This is my 29-week belly. As you can see, she's very big. Did I say 29? I mean 39. Anyway, yeah, that's the second trimester video done. I won't be doing another video until after I give birth now because I do want to experience the whole third trimester. So right up until basically I give birth, and I'll try and make notes. I think I might also try to do a birth story vlog if it's something that I'm able to do. Obviously, I don't really know what kind of birth I end up having. We are planning for a pretty bog standard vaginal birth. But I don't know, we'll see what happens when it comes to it. And yeah, maybe even a fourth trimester video, because a lot of people talk about like that initial like newborn phase and how it's more like a fourth trimester and you're still experiencing like parts of pregnancy that people don't really talk about. So I think I might like to do a video on that if I feel up to it. If that's something that you would be interested in, let me know down below. If you have any questions about the second trimester, I will try to answer them as much as possible in the comments. So if you would like to comment a question, I will try to reply to you if I'm able to give an answer. And yeah, I hope you like this video. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like down below, subscribe to see more videos like this, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!